Hi, Demonic Angel, and this is part 3, the final part of my paranormal childhood. Sorry if I sound a little off. I came down with a cold today, so I'm trying to obviously fight that with good herbal medicine, but it's gonna run its course. So, for part 3, really, I would say, to talk about this conclusion here, I just got so tired of all the paranormal activity, and obviously I had spent some time in the library reading about all kinds of religions, and at the time I was very Catholic, and in that sense of that's what I grew up as, and I was going to catechism, so I got holy water and I got some Bible verses about courage and strength, and of course I said some Our Fathers and Hail Marys, and this was, I went out to the garage with a Bible, and I said, I started saying these prayers, and I started reciting these verses. And after that, I said to this thing, which obviously was the guy who killed the other 2 individuals and himself, I can't take this anymore, but I'm not afraid. I am telling you that you have to leave me alone. And through God and Jesus, I command you to leave me alone. And I'm not afraid of you. I'm in control. And I really, meant it. And I got this conviction of sincerity. And it was this ritual, and it honestly, it worked. So I've never, ever since that day, I have never seen ghosts or apparitions with my own eyes. I see it with my third eye. So this is my personal experience. It transformed that day for me into perceiving it as like ghosts as imaginary friends standing in front of me, to it's like that for me in my mind's eye. Usually probably like a lot of other people, psychics and empaths, I feel it really in my solar plexus, and then that information washes over me. Some people say it's our consciousness, and other people think it's these spirit guides and angels and demons and the gods, and I think that that's all true, working together. And it's like, as Carl Jung says, it's like, if you ask me what I believe, of course, if an idea exists, or a concept exists, I do have to believe it because it exists, so it's influencing things because of it already existing. So it's just a matter of how you want to interact with that idea. that is really how it happened for me. I used to see this. Sorry, I was just checking the baby monitor. I used to see this stuff all the time. And then obviously I'll talk about this hard part for me is that, so obviously now there's not this paranormal stuff happening to me and my family, but I really became lost in myself around this age. I would still perceive, so I like now, I perceive living people's feelings and thoughts on this really deep level, and then I still see dead people, but in my mind. And I see a lot of beings that look like they're decomposing, and I see people the way they died. I also feel it like it happens to me. Now I know how to handle that now, but when I was young, I didn't. So I went through that phase where I really got angry with God in this sense of I didn't care what God thought, and it was like this whole battle against that idea for me. And I did turn to looking into Satanism and black magic. And obviously it's still part of my philosophy, but so is the concept of God. And so to me, I probably didn't have an understanding of what actual Satanism in this good way is. Like, in order to actually enjoy your life, you can't just be run by escaping from your mind. That's not really enjoying your life. That's not living your best life. And these are some of the ideas of Satanism. And that's why I'm still attracted to that in this way. And I became more interested in paganism after my interest in Satanism. But don't be ashamed. That idea, it started to stick with me. Don't be ashamed. You're gonna commit these sins and have these hard mental times, but this is a proud place to be, this physical plane, and it's not something to be ashamed of. And those wheels were kind of slowly turning for me to digest all these various ideas, but I didn't have the courage and everything. And I do really believe that. I feel like I've learned from all my experiences, and I'm happy to be here in the physical realm. Another aspect of probably why I got so lost, and when I say lost, I will just go ahead and say that I used to be a really severe alcoholic. When I was 21, I had to get my stomach pumped. I had a BAC of 0.52, and that's usually unsurvivable, but my tolerance was so high that I lived. I don't drink alcohol, and I haven't in years actually. So I started really young, not too long after the paranormal stuff. The paranormal events in my home stopped, and I used to go drink alone. I'd run the shower water and I would drink, and it was like, I think my feelings of alienation from the religious community I lived in were getting harder for me to handle. And also obviously these images, people, souls, and other beings were coming to me for help, but also to just drain me. And I wasn't ready to handle that. And another thing would be and I started self-harming. And I was sexually abused by my first boyfriend for a period of time. And it obviously, I didn't handle it well. And I'm saying this stuff because I do want people to feel like it's okay to go through these things, and it's because you can overcome, and you can still be of value, and you can turn your life into something good, and you can be on the left-hand path, a Satanist, a black magician, and you can use these things to help you to overcome these issues that are very, very human. And so, I mean, yeah, and I lived a life of promiscuity for a while because it took my mind off of the mental trauma that I always lived in. And I thought that my looks were all that mattered. And I'm not, I'm just an average looking person. But I didn't think that I could use my intellect in any kind of actual capacity. So I kept reading, but I felt like it didn't matter. And I actually do almost have a bachelor's degree, so I was going to school and I barely made it. I mean, I used to have to go drink in the bathroom in between going to classes just so that my hands would stop shaking. I mean, I really, really, like, I've been there, okay? And it was obviously very hard to get out of, and it was the fight of my life. Another spiritual thing I'd like to mention for this part 3 is that I started to have the really hard memories from my last life. So at first, when I was a little girl, it was these good memories, like about the chocolates I used to like, and I remembered being taller. But then it was like these images for me that mixed with the trauma of my life now, of watching people die, but this is as real to me as it was back then. So it is different for me than perceiving ghosts in the sense that this is now my conscious memory. And the shame I felt. I'll go into my reincarnation stories, but I'll give you an example. In my last life, my husband died of the Spanish flu in 1918. And when I realized that he was dead, I just left him there for like 3 days in bed, dead, and he started to stink. And all the decomp and that kind of stuff started to set in. But so did my mental insanity. And obviously this man, for me in my life now, is my great-great-grandfather. But in my last life, he was my husband. And I felt, so I would dream about this, right? And the mental images would strike me, and I'd feel guilty and ashamed, and he was haunting me from the grave. And this is not an actual a conscious, entity type thing. This is my own mental trauma. Me seeing it as outside of myself, which is what, an unhealthy mind sees things as outside of themselves only. I mean, I still see things as projected outside of myself. We all do. But if you only see it that way, then you're not doing too good. And that's how I would see that. And so then that's just an example, but my last life, the images came back to me. And then it kind of seems like they correspond with my life. So as I was struggling to get sober, a lot of things that I knew about being a Native American and knowing the psychic knowing and how to heal myself, those came back to me as I was really struggling to make it here, because that's what ultimately I came to do. I am driven by my need. Well, as simple as wanting to eat more chocolate, but as deep as I want to find that I am finding that it's not about the way I look, that I do have these healing abilities, the psychic knowing, and I can use empathy to my benefit. And I will evolve. And I came here to do that. And I literally picked to do that. And I picked how I would do it, and I knew I was gonna die, and all those things. This was a very concerted, conscious effort for me. But obviously I have to be young again, had to. And the whole thing that comes with having a new life, re-experiencing your problems. And that is why I really think that there's no escape. Consciousness can be disembodied, but it's gonna want to re-embody itself again or dissipate into other things that energetically are similar. But this is my experience. So yeah, I really I kept reading the whole time I was going through all this stuff. And I was definitely in a lot of ways a loner. I lived alone, and I drank, and I self-harmed, and I lived it. But I was slowly listening to my own mind that some people don't think, oh yeah, maybe if I die, it's okay. I know that it's not okay, and you're not going to escape from your problems. And that was like closing in on me as this is real. This is real. And I can matter by taking the hard way out and evolving, cleansing, becoming healthy. And I can put my healing and intellect to use. But first I have to get sober. And I did that. It was not easy. But obviously, well worth it. And so, yeah, it was really, that's kind of why I sort of put this in part 3 as like this evolution for me. Yeah, I've never seen a ghost again. But when I was young, that's how it was for me. So now it's instantaneous, usually. And in my mind's eye, or in my chakras, in my solar plexus, that I get this information, and it's instantaneous. It's not any less real. And when I was not healthy, the images were hard for me to handle, because I did still have dead people wanting to come to me for help, but I wasn't much of a help because I couldn't help myself. And so then we were just haunted together. Now that's not the case. I know how to cleanse and ground and separate myself, and I still experience it this way in my mind, but obviously I've got this balance of I can use reality and live in reality when that is what's best for the moment, because being in this life is a very great thing, and being grounded and real and doing things in the vehicle of my body. But I can also just leave and go to